So all you have in D2L for this is the Word document. This is one of those files to download everything because we created everything we did in the last one. And it is, we called it an assembly group panel, and then there's an inputs, and then the working file, and then an outputs. Just as a reminder, what we did last week, we also had a separate file, I don't have it open, but where there was some provided data that we brought into the working file, and it was all non-parametric data, so we just had to go to the other file, copy it, bring it over here and paste it. For example, there was this thing called a roof panel, and then there was the weather strip. There's 3 pieces of weather strip. They were all just non-parametric solids or something called the glass. I think I mentioned we're not really using the glass at all. And the weather strip, we gave you 3 pieces, but we're really only using one of those 3. So we didn't really have to bring them all across. But those were just copied and pasted. And then we also had this kind of finished, I think we did this last week, I don't think it's part of this week. We had this, well, let me show you this real quick again. The one called, that one, I'll highlight it. That's like the finished roof before the sunroof was in it, but you see all those extra features, these little rib kind of shapes and all the flanges and the holes, and you know, it's a finished part. The bends and everything in it. That was, we just brought that in as a simple non-parametric surface. Then we also went to that other file, copied and pasted the smoother unfinished surface. We put in the inputs here in our assembly, like so. And then just to make it, you know, so we're following our methodology like we were doing before. The inputs came from somewhere else, and then we're using the inputs in our working file. So we took that surface from the inputs, and we made a wave link from the inputs file to this file, our working file. So most of the surfaces we just copied and pasted, they were kind of dumb surfaces. This one we put in the inputs, and then from there we brought it in as a link. It is a link to a non-parametric surface, but it's now linked to another file. So anyway, that's what we did last time. One of the first things I have you do in this session is we're gonna add another feature group that we didn't have. And I have you do it in a certain way. I'll just, right here, it says, in the roof panel opening part, the work part, it says make the sunroof opening feature group active, and then insert a feature group into the sunroof opening group called main roof slabs. So you might be wondering, what if I didn't make it active? If I insert a feature group, I can put it anywhere I want. Why make that one active, right? Well, here I just wanted you to see something, because you know how sometimes you might have run across this. You add a feature group, and the other feature groups that you already had sort of get rearranged a little bit. Sometimes it's annoying, and sometimes it's hard to drag it back to where it was. So right now, I have the main form with the sunroof opening, and in the sunroof opening I have one thing, opening construction. I want to add another one after this called main roof slabs. I want it in this group after that one. So like I said, you might think, well, I don't need to activate anything first. I'll just go to feature group. This is going to be called main roof slabs. Case there. But I can just tell it right here, put it in sunroof opening, right? That's what the goal is, and if I do that, well, it worked. Here's sunroof opening, and there's the main roof slabs, and it put it where I wanted it. But it took the whole main roof and it shifted it around. Trim and final part used to be at the bottom of the tree. Now I moved that to the bottom, and I should be able to move it before that, but sometimes it's hard to do that. You know, it's just a pain trying to rearrange things. So one way to keep the tree from moving around on you when you're trying to insert a feature group is if you make something active, like if I go to, like it says make sunroof opening, what does it say? Let me read what I just said. Make sunroof opening active. Okay, if that's active, that becomes the current feature. The bold is always the current feature. So it's gonna put this new feature group in there right after that. And I guess, to be honest, I don't know why it doesn't shift around, but if you have that active, it's almost like telling the rest of the tree, just stay where you are, right? If I do the feature group now, it's already pointing at sunroof opening because that's active as the parent position. So, as an end result, see, it didn't shift these guys up in front of those. So that can be a little trick if you know where you're gonna insert something after the fact. You got a whole big tree already made, but now you're thinking, oh, I forgot to add this set or this feature group. And you don't wanna put it in there and have everything shift around on you. Go to where it's supposed to go and make it active, the feature group that you want it to go in. Make that active first, and that usually keeps everything else from moving around. The rest of the tree just sort of didn't get affected at all. All right. Let's see. Well then, now I will say this too. I could do it now or I could do it later. I'm gonna do something in the main roof slabs. We made a lot of stuff last week. Not a lot of stuff. We made some things last week in the sunroof opening construction feature group. Right? I'm gonna go back and add some more in there. And when I add some more in there, I'm gonna point to the roof I'm about to make here, in main roof slabs. Well, if I go back and add something here, which I'm gonna do in a few steps, if I make this active, right there. Remember, if that's active, then everything after it is out of play right now, it's deactivated. But I'm gonna need something from this feature group when I'm working on these. So, it's gonna have me move this, this feature group has to go before this feature group. Right, and I could do that right now, but in my instructions, I thought I was gonna do it, that's why I started talking about it. My instructions didn't have me do that just yet, so let me do this. It's one of those things, I could have first moved the feature group or created something like we're gonna do and then moved it. But I do have to move that feature group in a minute. So if I'm doing my instructions, it says activate the new one. So I'm gonna put something in here now. Make it active. And I really haven't talked about what we're doing in this file, but we're gonna first offset this smoother linked surface downward by the roof panel material thickness. Right? It goes back to that concept, you know, if you look at the section curves, there's two curves there, it's kinda hard to see it. But there's two curves, there's kind of like the top curve and the bottom curve, it's easier to see it that way. We're designing the lower part of it, you know, we're doing sheet bodies, we're doing surfaces. We're only doing one side of the material, we're doing that side. So logically, if you follow that along, we're doing the bottom here as we come around the bend, right? Come on, where are you? You're in there. We're doing the inside, or the left side of those two. And then again, if I kept coming down here, we're doing, you know, at the bottom here, there's two little arcs where my cursor is, we're doing the upper arc, and then we're doing the right side there. So we're following on. I think you see what I'm saying. If you follow this spline all the way in through there, here's the bottom section, here's the left section, there's the right section. So that's where we're making the surface. Well, we don't have a surface for the bottom one. We do have a surface for the top one. That's the one we linked to. But we want one that represents the bottom of that section. So we're doing an offset. We're gonna put that in main roof slabs. We're gonna go to surface, offset. I'm gonna pick, and I tell you to use body faces, which means, you know, I'm only picking one face at a time. It says select face, but if I pick that face and I have that on body faces, it's all one sheet body, it takes the whole thing. That way, if we later add or remove faces from that sheet body, they'll still pick the whole thing. We're gonna offset it downward by the material thickness. We have an expression. If I just start typing in ROO, there it is right there, roof panel material thickness. And remember, it doesn't really show you the value until you preview it and then undo it, or if you hit OK and then come back to it. So it's 0.71 mils thickness. It is coming down, it's a real small amount, but it's coming down a little bit. Right? We're gonna name that, because that's actually what we're designing. We're using that lower one, right? That's in main roof slabs. So yes, we are gonna name it design side, main roof slab. That's the one we're gonna be doing the blending to with our sunroof opening. This one, the one that's above it, which is actually that linked one, I'm gonna hide it. I don't know if I tell you to hide it, but I'm gonna hide it because I don't need to see it anymore. Because there was two right near each other. Now I only have one, you know. It's less than a mil apart, so it's really, you gotta zoom in real close to see that there was two. So I got one. Now, one thing I won't do here is go and change the sheet body name, only because the reason we would name sheet bodies all goes back to making links later on. If you make linked copies of something using WaveLinker, and you're trying to pick it in another file, it's easier to pick it if you see the name of it. And if you name the sheet body, the name jumps right out at you. Okay, that's one of the main reasons we do that. So I got that. Oh, I'm sorry, there's another step. I'm reading my instructions and I almost missed a step. Because it says, now offset the new surface downward again, using sunroof opening bend radius. Well, I'll do it. Offset that, pick that. The offset sunroof, or the sunroof opening bend radius is an expression. As a reminder, when I went to offset, it's already got an expression in there. Remember that when you're doing things like an offset or an extrude, by default, it's remembering whatever you use last, as far as numbers and whatnot. So that was using an expression, but it's not the one I want. Okay, it's a different one. Mine's called roof panel L. I spelled that wrong. Roof panel L. I spelled thickness wrong. But I can't type in there right now. I could go to the expressions, the formula editor, right, to see all the expressions, or I could just start over, because I'd rather just start typing in the name, but I can't type right now. Remember, if you go to the right, and you go to the thing called make constant, that breaks any link. I could have also reset the whole window, but that breaks any link, and then now I can just start typing, and it's sunroof opening bend radius. So if I just start typing SUN, there it is right there. Sunroof opening bend radius. That one also is going down. That one is a little farther, it's 1.5, as opposed to 0.7. And that's gonna be called the pipe construction surface main slab. I'll just call it pipe surface main slab, because we're gonna have another pipe surface. And if you think about it, I'm actually gonna hide the previous one too. So now all I see is that last one I just made. But this pipe construction thing, I don't know if you remember, but when we did the fuel door, we did the fuel door opening, we had that little concept of, I'm gonna hide these guys for a second. Okay. I have a wall that's gonna come up here and then bend across to this one, right? So again, that's our design side right there. And then there's a fillet here, and then there's this wall that we've already made, right? We're gonna use that method that we used before, where we're gonna determine where the middle of this fillet is. And it's based on the bend radius. So the bend radius is 1.5. That's in here, inside the circle a little ways, about like so. So what we just did was we offset this guy down by 1.5. We're gonna offset this guy over, I think we already did that in the last exercise, 1.5. Where those two surfaces meet will be right here, where the middle of that bend will be. Okay, I don't know, I just said a lot of words there, that doesn't mean you understood what I was talking about, but that's what we're doing, right? So anyway, that's the first one. That's an offset downward, taking into account the bend radius. And now that I think of it, if I go back and look in the sunroof opening, yeah. See, I already have the pipe construction opening. That one, this guy, that's not our design side of our sunroof opening wall that's gonna be going down. That's starting from the design side, but it went inward. It's like a weird angle, but it went inward by the bend radius. So where this wall meets that wall, is gonna be a curve where they intersect. That curve is the middle of this fillet that we're gonna make, all right? So we're gonna make a tube like we did before, all right? Another thing here is what I was talking about before. That feature group I just made. I'm actually gonna create something. The next step, let me read my next step here. The next step is to create that intersection curve I was talking about. And I need that intersection curve here in sunroof opening construction. The intersection curve that's the middle of that fillet. But I need it in here. It's an intersection between this guy and this guy. Well, if I want the intersection in here, if I make that active, I can't get to that guy because he comes after. in the history. So, in other words, I need this to come before that in the history. So, what we do is, and it tells you here, you could try just dragging things around, but you know, this one's active right now. I tell you, how do I tell you to do it? Make, you know how they used to have update to end, they don't have update to end anymore. Make last feature current, okay? Then it says reorder the main roof, or yeah, the main roof slabs, this one. I want to put it before this. I still want it in sunroof opening, but I want it before this one. So I'm gonna take this, and it might make it easier if I collapse them a little. It's easier to see it. I need main roof slabs right before sunroof opening. So, you know, you gotta think about it logically. I want them, they both need to be in sunroof opening, okay? And I just like to talk about this because it's easy to forget this. You can drag it sometimes, but when I go to drag it, see that little black line, remember this? I see you keep jumping ahead there. That little black line right there, there's a subtle difference. Right now, if you look at that black line, it stops under the word feature and feature group right above it, right? See the blue feature group, 21? It stops right by the F. If I slightly move my cursor, now it's stopping left of the folder. See that? If I slightly move this again, that black line, now it's to the right of the folder. Now it's under the folder. That's a different, that makes a big difference. If you put it completely under the folder like that, that means if I let it go, it's gonna put it after that feature group, sunroof opening. If I slightly move it like that, that means it's gonna put it in the feature group. That's a big difference. So I'm moving main roof slabs. Do you want it in this feature group, or do you want it after the feature group? So pay attention to that little line. You want the line to come up short of the folder. And then when I let it go, see, there it is, that's the new one, I just moved right there. It's inside of this feature group. And I know you're saying, well, you said it was gonna put it after, that's after. Well, that's inside the feature group, as opposed to, when I said after, what I meant was after this folder and outside of it down here. If I would've let it go when this black line was completely under that folder, it wouldn't be in there, it would be after that complete folder. If that makes any sense at all. But anyway, so watch that little black line. So that's correct now. Now my main roof slabs is before this, so that if I make this active, which is the next step, that did exist already. The main roof slabs, they existed, so it's there, I can pick it. It's the one I just made, pipe surface main slab, right? So what are we doing with that? We're now gonna intersect them, because we're gonna make that pipe. I'll do this a couple of steps quick. We're gonna make an intersection curve. So I go to curve, I go to intersection curve. Now in my instructions, you remember last time I think we did it a little bit, where everything started from the weather strip surface or that other surface they gave us, and those were not necessarily good quality surfaces. They were non-parametric. They actually came from maybe some other software even, and they were translated in. A lot of times the data is kind of unsmooth, it's kind of crappy. So I want to use that data, but I also want to smooth it out. So remember we kind of smoothed out some curves as we were making them? Well, you can't really do that with an intersection curve. There is a way to change the underlying math, like you can say, well, I'm gonna make a new curve with so many degrees or whatever, but I don't know what the degrees are supposed to be, so I'm just gonna do an intersection. I'm gonna leave them. In other words, I didn't do anything in settings. I want to intersect that pipe surface for the sunroof opening with the pipe surface, next field, for the roof. So those are those two offset surfaces that meet where the middle of the fillet is. So here again, if I can show this a little bit better. I'm trying to update the display a little bit so it's smoother. So see, there's that radius I keep talking about. The dead center of that is where that curve is that I just made. It's running right through the center of that thing, right? So yeah, now we're gonna do what we kind of did before. I don't think I named the intersection. No, I don't. All right. Oh, I forgot though. That intersection might not be real clean because I'm using this surface, which may be a little crappy, right? And when you intersect or make a parallel on a surface, that curve is only as smooth as the surfaces you're using, right? So we want to smooth that one out. We used to use something called join curve, I'm actually surprised, in NX 2212, they actually got rid of a command. A lot of times they'll say, well, we're gonna get rid of it, and they just don't get rid of it for a long time. But just to show you, if I look up join curve, or actually, let me go. If I right click here and I go to customize, if I go to customize, remember how you can look up commands. If I type in join curve, it's not there, there's no join curve. Right, well, join curve is how you connect up, even if it is really one curve, but it's got a bunch of segments, you can connect it up into one nice smooth curve. So if there's no more join curve, what do we use? The new thing we use is called composite curve. Okay, it's right here in the curve tab. It should be there by default when you derive group. It's called composite curve. And you pick curves, and I have it set to tangent curve, so I'm picking the intersection, which may not be real smooth, okay? But in this one, in the settings, you can join it. So if you're ever looking to do a join of curves that already exist, you now would go to composite curve, and internal to the composite curve, you join it, okay? So we're gonna do a cubic, which again means a third degree polynomial. We're gonna change the tolerance that helps smooth it out a little bit more. Instead of 0.01, it's gonna be 0.1. I have a point there. Yeah, a lot of times I end up with 2 points, but 0.1. And I just made a new composite curve. The intersection curve, I couldn't remember if I hide that, they both hide, but they don't. So I hid the intersection curve, I got the composite curve. And yes, I do want you to name that. So that's gonna be called pipe surface construction curve. I'll just call it pipe construction curve, or even abbreviate that, because you guys like watching me type. All right? Now we're gonna make that tube. You know, I keep saying we're gonna make a tube, but technically we're gonna use a different tool to make it. We could use the tube command, but I kind of wanted to show you another tool that we have that is often used for something like this. Maybe I'll hide these two things too. In fact, I don't need those anymore. Those are the pipe surface constructions. That was just to make that curve. There is a surface type called section surface, right? If you get into a lot of surfacing, if your job requires a lot of surfaces, you might use this tool a lot. It makes conics, or circles, or cubics, or linear surfaces, right? It's sort of like the sweep command in CATIA, but you don't have to draw a conic. It'd be like making a conic sweep along that curve, or making a circle sweep along that curve, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a circular one. I don't have to draw the circle. There's different ways to define it. We're just gonna say, we're gonna give it the center, and a radius, right? So we're using something called section surface, which, by the way, we could make it a sheet or a solid. I don't think I tell you to make it either one. It really doesn't matter for what we're gonna do. Actually, you know what? I think I don't say it, but it should be a solid, because we are gonna slice it in half. So it doesn't tell you to change that, so just read the instructions and you won't change it. So, but you could make a sheet or a surface. That is a big difference between this, a circular section surface, and the tube command, right? The tube command always makes a solid. Section surface with a circular cross section can be a solid or a sheet. All right, that's a big difference. Another difference is this one uses radius, whereas the tube always uses the diameter, I think. Yeah. So it says select start guide. Well, I'm just gonna pick center radius. I'm gonna pick that. It also needs a spine. Without going into great detail, I'll do that. So, well, yeah, I'll come back to that. The radius, let's see, what do I tell you to use? The pipe construction surface. I went too far ahead in my instructions, sorry. Section surface. Oh, it's the sunroof opening bend radius. Yeah, that's what we're using. Okay, so right here, where the value is for my radius, I'll just start typing again. Sunroof opening bend radius. Right? But it's asking me, it won't let me hit OK or anything until I give it a spine. And again, we could do a whole project on spines. We are going to do bifactor, by the way. But I'll try to be brief about what a spine does, right? We're taking a circle, radius 1.5, and sweeping it along that guide, okay? That circle is on a plane now. As you sweep that circle along the guide, I wanna make sure that circle is always perpendicular to this curve. Think of the circle being on a plane, and that plane is sweeping along there. Well, that plane could actually rotate, it could tilt. I don't want it to tilt. I want it to stay perpendicular to that curve as it goes all the way around. A spine, that's what a spine does. When you pick that curve, I pick that curve as the guide and the spine. That means behind the scenes, it's gonna take a planar shape that's always perpendicular to that curve, put a circle on it, centered around that curve, and sweep it along that curve. As it's sweeping along it, it's always staying perpendicular. That's what controls that shape. You can't see it there because it's all choppy, but that's what a spine does. Now, you may or may not have really grasped any of that. I don't know if that helped at all. But spines are actually very important in surfacing. And that's a circular shape, so I don't know. Yep, we're gonna call that pipe surface. So after all that, we didn't use the tube command, we used the section surface command. We could have used the tube, and it's the same concept, right? Now, I'm gonna make a reflect curve on the inside of that, because, and here's where it kinda gets messed up, because even now, I'm trying to, that doesn't look like anywhere close to where I said, right? Well, it's not letting me, oh, you know, I can do this, I'll show you something. That doesn't look right, though. I kept saying, well, the curve is right down the middle of that circle. Then why is it way down there? It should be in the middle of that, right? Well, it actually is, but see how it's faceted? It looks straight. Here's a little, I don't know if I said this in class, a little secret. If you wanna clean up visually, I mean, the curves look good, but that thing looks really bad. You can go to File, I think this is why it's not there. File Preferences, Visualization. Yeah. File Preferences, Visualization, there's a Performance, and under Accuracy it says Advanced. The resolution for shaded views, mine is set to standard. Did I show this before? I don't remember if I did. Ask me again if you want to remember it. Instead of a standard resolution, well, there's a worse one called Coarse. Then they had one called Fine. Then they updated the software and they came up with a better one called Extra Fine. Then they updated the software and came up with a better one. They, for lack of a better name, they called it Ultra Fine. Now, I'm gonna use Ultra Fine just because I like the name. And see how it looks a lot smoother. It's still, well, that sure still doesn't look like a nice spot. What is that? There it is. Did I do, where's my intersection curve? Actually, let me just pick it. Let me pick my intersection curve. Pipe construction, pipe surface. It sure doesn't look right. Well, we'll see. We'll see when I'm done. Could have swore that was gonna go right through. It just looks like it's in the wrong spot. It's way down low. Let me show my. Where did I go? Did I go too far? 1.5. I'm just trying to see why this looks so bad visually. It might not actually be wrong, it just looks bad. I'm gonna check something out real quick. Bear with me for a second. Pick a point right there. It says 1.5. So let's see the curve. See now, that curve, does that look like it's going through the center of that? No, it sure doesn't, does it? It's way above it. Did I? Maybe I did something wrong with my center radius. Start guide, I'm reading my own instructions. Start guide, pipe construction curve. Did I pick the wrong curve? Let's see. No, it's using the pipe. I think that's just a visual It looks way off, but, well, let me continue on and see if it's really, maybe it isn't really off. Just looks bad. Because I possibly can't do anything with it myself, you know that. Okay, so there it is, pipe surface. Then it says hide everything except the pipe construction surface for sunroof opening and the pipe surface. I got that, and then there's pipe construction surface. I think that is. Yeah, no, okay. And that should be, so that should be slicing right down the middle of that too. Because that's what I used to intersect that curve. Right? Yep, sure did. So I'm gonna slice off, we made that a solid because I want to slice off the outside. So I'm gonna do a trim body. I'm just gonna run away from that other issue right now. Trim body, I'm gonna trim that single body with that face. I want to keep the inside and reverse that. It points to the side that's going away. So I'm now keeping, that looks better actually. Now it's still down low. I'm just gonna keep working with it, see what happens. So I trimmed it, because we're gonna do a reflect curve or an isocline curve, right? We've done a few of those. So the isocline curve, I want it to be where it's tangent right down at the 0 degrees, you know, I'm gonna say, go to the extreme of that tube, either on the inside or the outside. I want it on the inside. If I left the thing as a complete circle, it would put one on both sides. I don't want one on both sides. I want it on this side only. So I did the trim. Split pipe surface, that's what it's called, split pipe surface. Okay. Then we're gonna do an isocline, 0 degrees. Z component, okay, isocline. This time though, we're gonna do the vector. Yeah. So yeah, so the face, even if I have it on tangent faces, it's only picking the inside, it's not picking that flat on the outer side. It sure doesn't look like it. The vector is gonna be the Z. Okay. 0 degrees for the angle, and this one, I mean, I'm already pretty confident that curve was pretty smooth, but in the instructions it says, let's do a join, make it 1/10, 0.10, 0.1. Can't find my delete keyword. Okay, like so, and it should be at 0 degrees, it's at the inner extreme right there. Okay, that's my isocline. Now we're gonna make a law extension, we're gonna make a surface for that. A law extension on the inside. We already made one on the outside in an earlier step, but we're gonna make one on the inside. So I'm gonna go to surface, law extension. Okay, this time we're gonna make one, remember law extension, you create like a linear surface at an angle to something. Most of the time when we've done this, we did it at an angle with respect to a direction. But now that I've got that curve at 0 degrees with respect to the Z, we're gonna say, do it at an angle to the face. So you'll see what I mean in a second. So the curve is gonna be the isocline. The face that I'm gonna be measuring the angle from is that face on the part. And we're gonna be 0 degrees, angle law is 0. Okay, the length law is 20 and 30, so it's gonna go up. Well, there's two lengths. By default, it's just going one way. So if I make that 20, and it's actually going down by default, I want to have an extension side. I want it to go both up and down from that curve. So an extension side, I set it to asymmetric, which means I can give it a separate value than the other one. That's the normal length. The other way is going to be going 30, which is the opposite way. Of course, I tell you, yeah, but the 30 should be going down and the 20 should be going up. So just something to remember with law extensions, there's two reverse directions. I want to just flip the 20 to go up and the 30 to go down. There's two things to reverse. Now, let me show you something real quick. If I change this to 30 degrees, okay, that's a 30-degree law extension. I have two reverse directions. One of them, if I hit that one, it tilted the angle the other way. See that? 30 degrees to the left, 30 degrees to the right. That's what one of them does. The other one flips the symmetric and asymmetric, right? So now the 20 is going up, the 30 is going down. Now the 30 is going up, the 20 is going down. So there's four possible solutions to this when I have it at 30 degrees. You can tilt to the left 30 and have the longer side going up, or it could tilt to the right and have the longer side going up, or it could tilt to the left and have the longer side going down. Tilt to the right and have the longer side going down. So there's four possible solutions. If you have it at 0 degrees, well, there's no angle, so it's not tilting. So you won't see four solutions. But I do need to flip this one so that the 30 is going down and the 20 is coming up. I don't know if that really even matters too much, but so there it is. Okay, I'm still wondering why that thing doesn't look like it's centered right. Anybody else got to this step? Does yours look like that? I mean, mine doesn't look, even when I did the split, I might have done something wrong. I'll fix it later, but that doesn't look like it's half of the tube, right? It's like the tube's already coming back down on that side where I split it. I'll worry about it later, though. I will worry about it because I worried. So we're going to name that sunroof opening design side. So this is supposed to be the one that goes through that section. Sunroof opening design site. It's supposed to be the one that goes through that curve right there. That's our sunroof opening design site. Okay, all that work was to get that surface. And that's it. Now we also have this return flange, so the surface is going to come down here, but then it's going to go around and come up this little curve and then come back up to here. We got to get to that point. Okay, so that's what the next few steps are for. Let's see, I did that. It says make last feature current. Okay, update to the end. Hide the split pipe surface and the isocline. Open those. It says only the sunroof opening design side should be visible. Yep, there it is, whether it's in the right spot or not. Okay. Now we're going to go to sunroof opening construction. And it says make that the current feature and then insert a new feature group. So kind of like that little trick I showed you before, I want another feature group, but it's going to go inside this one. It's going to go inside, what do I say? It's going to go inside sunroof opening, which is here, but I want it after this one. All right, so here's another little trick, right? I want to create it in that group after this. Well, remember what active means. Active means you're going to create something inside of a feature group. Current feature means you're going to create something right after it. So if I make this current, I tell you this in the instructions, you don't have to do all these steps. You could create it where you think it is, and if it's not in the right spot, you have to move it. But I'm going to make this current. I didn't make it active, I made it current. It's bold. That means when I create something now, it's going to go right after it. Now that actually made the sunroof opening active. So sunroof opening became active, meaning, it knows if you're going to put something right after this, it's going to have to go into sunroof opening. But it's going to go right after that. Okay? And then we're going to create one called the return flange. I don't have to tell it anything in the top, because the sunroof opening is already active, so it knows it's going to put it in there, and it's going to put it after that one. Oh, yep, there it is. So there we go, right? So now we're going to make that return flange. That's this little piece right there. It's coming back up. We made this wall, which is that one. We're going to make this one now, right there, right? So we're going to do an offset. The offset on this one is a little bit of measuring, so I tried to tell you in the instructions how to make this easier. I'm going to do an offset surface. I'm going to offset this. sunroof opening design side. It's gonna be going outward. Right now it says 1.5 because that must be the last offset I did. Remember, you can make it constant or you can just reset the whole window. That goes back to the default number. That's easy to edit, okay? But then I wanna measure, we're gonna actually measure how far between this line, which is what we made already. That's the wall I'm starting from. I don't know if you can see that very well. And that line right there, okay? Now what I do, I think I tell you, it says, oh, in the image below, the front view is shown, and the static wireframe display mode is used. So, I mean, you could try to line it up like this, because I want to measure in between there. It's really hard to do. So what I tell you to do, and I think I can do this while that window's open. Go to Orient View, Front View. Now it's looking right down the edge like that. And then we also have the static wireframe. And if you guys have the toolbar up here where you can show the display mode, now they call it rendering. If you go to static wireframe, then it looks easier to see what's going on inside. Yeah, see, that's still way off. I don't know why that is. I'm gonna have to fix what's going on there. I don't know what that is. Actually, it might be right. But the offset distance, I'm gonna measure now. So everything I just talked about was just to make it easier to see this. What I need to know is how far is it from this line to this line, okay? If it's on object, you can pick individual lines. Now, I tell you to carefully pick a line. See, right now it's picking the entire spline. Sometimes you can get lucky and pick just an individual line, but what you can do is wait for the 3 dots, click on it. See, the whole spline is red, but if you go to line, where your cursor was, then you're on just that one line. That's what I want to measure. From there, under object, I can pick another line. And it's weird. See, sometimes it doesn't just grab the line. Other times it grabs the whole section. If it doesn't grab the line there, just wait for the 3 dots, set it to line, and you should get 1.542. Oh, that's what mine keeps showing. So I'm trying to go, you know, here's the main surface coming down, here's the return flange coming up. The return flange is an offset of the main one. You just need to know how far it was between those two. Okay? Now, in the instructions, I was thinking of telling you to change this later. It's 1.5420. 1.5240, I'm sorry. You can leave it like that. When you do a measurement, by default, it's linked to the measure. I don't care. I don't tell you what to do in the instructions. If you don't want it to be linked to a measure, which is typical, you don't usually want it. Remember, I got the number there, but I can also say make it constant. And of course, it wasn't really rounded off. It's 1.52399999. If you want, I can make it 4. Either way, you can leave it linked if you want. Doesn't matter. Let me preview it. And again, I don't see it there. Let me hit OK. Let me go back to that mode. That offset surface. It is the correct location. I mean, the correct distance. I don't know why mine looks like it's in a funny spot, but it should be outward by that distance, 1.54. I'm saying that wrong. 1.524. All right. And yes, we're going to name that, I think. Maybe not. Maybe you don't name that. Yes, we do. Return flange slab. Now that's return flange slab. It's not the finished return flange, right? Because now, well, all right, so it's coming down from the inside. It's got to come back around, right? If we're seeing this, it's got to come down from the right side, come back around to where my cursor is. So there's a little fillet on the bottom here, okay? So we're gonna do, oh, I know what we're gonna do first, I'm sorry. We're gonna trim off the top of this too. This is another one. We could do this now or in the next step. This return flange is coming up because it was an offset of that one. It's coming up way above where it needs to be. It really needs to stop. It needs to come up to this line and stop right here. So I'm gonna trim the surface. I wanna trim this surface right where it hits the top of this, okay? What I'm gonna do is make A nice trimming piece for that would be another offset of our slab surface that we made. It's a show the design side main roof slab. Right there. Okay, there's that guy. I'm gonna offset it downward, so it's ending up right where the top of this little guy is on the inside, right here where my cursor is. I wanna offset that large gray surface so it's down to here. Okay. Once again, I'm gonna do a orient view for the front. Change the shaded mode. You can either do the rendering style here, static wireframe, or you can use this one up here. Okay. Makes it easier to visualize. Hey, that looks better now. That surface does look like it's going right through that. Oh no, it should be over here though. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna offset this. So I'm gonna do an offset surface. That's the main one. Okay. This is the main surface. I'm gonna offset that downward. However far it needs to go from here to right there in that little corner. Okay, so I'm gonna do a measure. Set the measure object. I'm gonna try to pick that curve right there. That spline. Okay. And then I wanna measure that little corner point. And remember, the measure tool is kind of new in this version, so you might not be as familiar with it. It's not letting me pick that corner. I want that little corner. You have to change this to point. When you're using the measure tool, it's set to object by default. Objects could be just about anything, but it's not points. You gotta change it to point. Then you can pick a point. And it says 4.2890. That's what my instructions say, so that must be right. Okay, that's number 1. Same thing here. If you want to break the link, you can make it constant. I'll just leave it like that. All right, so I just made another offset surface. Let's go back to shaded with edges. Okay, now I got this styling or design side surface. I don't need that anymore. I have this offset I just made, which should be going right to the top of that little blue section. I think it is. And then I'm going to trim. Did I name that? Yes, of course I named that. Return flange trim surface. Let's call it return trim. Return trim there. Lazy. All right. Now it says hide everything except the return flange and the return flange slab and the return flange. You know what I mean. Return flange slab. So there's the slab, there's the trimming piece. I'm gonna do a trim sheet. I'm in surfaces. I'm gonna trim this guy. Now this too, you've gotta remember this one a little bit. This is the trimming surface right here. It's cutting right through the middle of this thing. I wanna keep the bottom half when I'm done. When you do a trim sheet, you're selecting the target, the one you're gonna trim. You're selecting it somewhere. Notice I'm selecting it above the trimming piece. It's gonna remember where I picked it. If I pick it above it, right, it's gonna remember that. The boundary, the trimming piece, is this main, or you know, the flange trimming piece I made. Okay. Now ignore that message. It says one or more things are not hitting it. It's something to do with that curve or something. Just ignore that. But is it gonna keep the top or the bottom, right? Now I could hit preview. You could also just go here where it says select region. You go to select region. That trimming piece is dividing my target into 2 regions, the top and the bottom. I know I probably talked about this before. It's a good thing to remind you. Trim sheet, you divide things into regions, and it keeps one side and gets rid of the other. The side, if you go to select region, the side that's highlighted is what it's gonna keep. This is set to keep. Right? Now why is it highlighted at the top? Because I picked it up here. If I would have started out and I picked down here instead, and then picked this, it would highlight that piece. But it's not a problem. It's saying it's gonna keep that region. Well, I don't wanna keep that region, I wanna get rid of that. I wanna discard that region and keep the bottom. I could start all over again and pick the other side, or I can say, well, the region that's highlighted, let's discard that one. It's always breaking it into multiple regions. It's gonna discard one and keep one. You just have to make sure it's discarding the right one. The one that's highlighted is what these buttons are gonna do. I wanna discard that, so if I hit OK, kept the bottom half, right, after all that. Now that is our return flange surface. It's a trim sheet. Get close to the end, don't worry. oh, now, we gotta also have, right, that return flange surface, yeah, it's going up to the top there, I don't know why it's not right there, but it should be. And then we got the other surface on the inside, well, I have it hidden right now. But, maybe I'll hide that trimming surface, I don't need that anymore. Okay. And I need, what we're gonna do is, we're gonna make a fillet, right? So I got a wall that's coming down here. I got a wall that's coming down here. We're gonna blend them at the bottom. We need a wall that represents a temporary wall, right here, where the bottom of this arc is, right there. We need a temporary wall that we can then blend from here to there, up to there, okay? So that temporary wall is just gonna be another offset of the main roof, the design side roof slab. I had it shown, then I hit it, now I'm gonna show it again. This guy, I know it's hard to tell what I'm doing here. But I wanna offset that downward, and I'm even gonna do this again. Orient the view to the front, change the display mode to static wireframe. Offset this one downward, but now I want a surface that's gonna be right here at the bottom of that, the extreme of that. So we're gonna do another measure. Okay. This time we're gonna measure, now it's set the point because that was what I used last. Let me go back to object. I'm offsetting this guy from here to the bottom of this. It just so happens the way this was made, if you set this to point, there is an end point, that's the little arcs right there, pieces of arc. You can pick right there. And it says 10.2890, that's exactly what it says in the instructions. So I'm just temporarily making a surface that's a huge surface, but all I need is to help, I need it down here to help me make these fillets. Okay? And it should be going downward, I'll just hit okay, I'm gonna trust it. And of course, return flange, I'll just call it transition surface. Now we're gonna do make sure. Yep. So now I have, I don't need the top surface. Okay. That's the transition surface. I've got the return flange coming up right there. I'm gonna go back and get the design side, center of opening design side right here. Right? And I need to put those together at the bottom with a fillet. Now in the old instructions I had you actually trim them and make them hard corners and then use edge blends. But remember, I don't actually know if we use this tool in this class. Maybe not even in the NX1 or 2 class. But in CATIA there was something called a tri-tangent blend. I'm gonna do a face blend. I gotta go to the sunroof, make the right thing active first. This is gonna be a combination of all this for the sunroof opening. So, oh, it already is active. It's gonna go in there. Did I have the wrong place active before that? Yeah, actually these, I should have had some things in the main roof slabs. But it's okay, I'll move them later. I'm gonna do a face blend. Okay. Pretty much every face blend we've ever done, we just did a 2-face face blend. I'll reset that just to make sure. There happens to be one called a 3-face. CATIA, it's called a tri-tangent. Okay. And you notice it doesn't ask us for a radius. It's asking for face 1, face 2, and then middle face. Okay. CATIA, they said face to remove. So I'm gonna say, we're going, it tells you here which one you pick as face 1, which one is face 2, right? I want to come down this main one, sunroof opening design side. That's face 1. Face 2 is where it comes back up. It's going to come down, blend up, and go back up to this one. Okay. Face 2 is this one on the opposite side. Okay. Now they both have arrows. And again, if I zoom in, it's going to be going like this, coming down from the right, going up on the left. Well, the new fillet's gonna be at the bottom here. It really needs to go in between both walls. So that one's going to the left. This one needs to go to the right. And then there's middle face, which, again, that surface, that's that transition I made down here, that's what's gonna tell it, all right, you're coming down the green one. When you start transitioning to the other side, right where you touch that new surface right there. So it's gonna brush across that one, tangent to it, and then go up to phase two. Come down phase one, brush across that, and then go back up to phase two. So that one is this surface, middle phase, and the fillet's gonna be above that one, so I need that to go up. And there's no radius involved, I think. It doesn't give me any errors. So that made, it's kind of the shape of a J. Now that jumped way up, look at that, it's way out. Well, that surface, I'm gonna hide that. So, you know, it should be right on it. If you're doing it, it's probably right on it. But it's coming down. What this wall is, if I cut it in half, if I cut a section through it, it's like the shape of a J. And it should represent that line going down, that arc coming around, and that line coming back up, right? And remember this, just to show you, remember this guy called edit section? Do a Y section on the part. Kind of see, even though mine's in a weird spot, there's that shape. Okay, can you sort of see it? You can even throw curves on there. Right there. That's what we're doing. So that's the design side main slab, and that's the return flange. Why mine's in the wrong spot, I don't know. I'll worry about it myself. Don't lose any sleep over it in case you guys are scared. Sunroof opening, right? And I really just have one more fillet to make. Okay. The last thing is, it says update, make last feature current. We're now gonna make one last blend. So I'll make that active. I'll make that final part set active, feature group active. And it says we're gonna do a two-face between the original roof panel. I forgot, we haven't used this guy yet. We brought this in way in the beginning last week. The one called roof panel. I'm showing it. It's the one with all the finished stuff on it. We've got that, and we've got our sunroof opening surface, which, like I said, is kind of in the shape of a J. We're just gonna blend those together. Just gonna do a face blend. Now remember, if you go to face blend, it remembers what you did last time. Last time it was a three-face. So I don't wanna do a three-face. This time I wanna pick two things and put a radius in there. We're gonna use the sunroof opening bend radius. A good habit for any tool really is just reset it, because the default is two-face. Right? So I'm gonna say body faces, yep, pick that one. And we're doing a blend where it's coming up that sunroof opening. The sunroof opening is coming up from below it, and then it's gonna blend over the top coming outward, right? So it is gonna go outward from the sunroof opening itself. And then body faces, I'm gonna pick this. The blend is actually supposed to be below that. And if you think of coming up from the inside of the sunroof and going over to the actual roof, the blend is below the roof. So this arrow has to go the other way. And then the radius, and see this, here's where I was thinking. Sometimes it gives me this message. It's multiple blends, you can ignore it because it's just gonna make one blend all the way around there. I'm gonna start typing in SUN, there it is, sunroof opening bend radius. I'll just say okay, because I trust it. There it is. So, even my sections look goofy now. So it should be, again, I don't know why mine's in the wrong spot. I might have done one little thing wrong, but every step I did was the step you're gonna need to do. I'll fix this. But it is, I mean, you can see it from underneath. It's coming down the wall on the inside, that return flange comes down, comes out, goes up to the top, and then blends over to the roof. Okay. I'll even remind you that if you want to see the section thing, go to view, go to edit section, go normal to Y. Just makes it easy to visualize, see that? You can see my section, which is a little bit off, but it's in there. That's what it should look like. That's what a sunroof opening, this whole project, 2 weeks, sunroof opening, all it was this return flange, a fillet, the main wall, and a fillet. Everything we did was just to make that. All based on the weather strip, deflection, and radius failures, and all those other things. A lot of work for just some little simple shape, right? But that's the real world. All right, any questions?
Mine was also off.
Was it?
Yeah. It looked like it might have been something from last week.
Maybe something we did last week. I'll investigate.